You're on mute, Tammy. Right?
Well, good morning.
Hey, Tammy.
How are you?
Really good. How are you with these 11-hour call days?
Oh, it's a bit crazy.
Sorry, I didn't quite get that.
It's a bit crazy.
Yeah.
And I am working with keeping my energy even, and also noticing that I'm not going to work today. Today I'm supposed to be doing 11 hours, but I've got other things that I'm going to focus my attention on so that life works better.
I'm glad.
And then I've got 7 more 11-hour days before the end of the year. So.
Wow. That's like all of the days almost, right? Almost.
Except 3.
Hey, Anna. So, Tammy, I'm going to give you host again.
Let's get someone else to do that.
Okay.
Today. You're not going to be here to the end, is that right?
Yeah, Gail wants me to drive her to the clinic today.
Okay. So we'll find someone else. You can feel free to give me co-host, if you want.
Okay.
And then if you give co-host, I believe you can end the meeting.
Okay, great. I'll make everybody co-host then.
Well, I'll see.
I made you and Anna both co-hosts at the moment.
Okay.
And there's another Anna.
Oh, great. It looks like you do have to give someone host to be, because I can just leave the meeting. I can't end the meeting.
Oh, okay.
So maybe Doug wants to have all the power.
Hey, Doug. Hey, I was explaining that I will have to leave actually very, very soon, but wanted to get this recording going. And since I will not be here at the end of the call, if someone actually is planning to be here till the end, I could make that person host so that that person can end the recording without a lot of white space, white noise. And you're on mute, by the way, Doug.
I'm actually out of here right around 1, so I'm not going to make the full duration.
Okay.
So I would demur.
What time is it now?
It is. That's a good question. Hold on, I got to minimize this. It's 12.
Okay, so we have an hour.
Yeah.
Okay, I wanted to volunteer to facilitate this meeting.
So Anna, can I also make you host then, since you're a facilitator?
I don't think I can be host, no, because I only have mobiles. I don't have.
Oh, okay. Actually, it looks like I can make you host.
Okay.
Let me try that.
What do I have to do to be host?
Nothing. I just need to grant you host, and all you need to do is end the meeting for everyone.
Okay.
At least so far as we've defined that responsibility.
Okay.
Hello, Gertrude.
Well, if I find, oh yeah, I do. I have a thing saying end meeting. So
Yes.
I guess
So now you are host.
Okay, fine.
You're the boss.
Scary position. Okay, Gertrude, I have volunteered to facilitate this meeting.
Great. Is Sam
And,
leaving?
Leaving now?
Yes, a friend of mine actually wants me to take her to a medical appointment. So I am leaving in minutes.
Okay.
Okay, so Sam, I wish you wonderful holidays and all the best.
Oh,
Because
that's
on
right.
Sunday I will not be
We're
here.
not going to be, oh, that's right. Oh, Sunday is Christmas Eve, right? Oh, that's a good question. Are we having the call on Sunday? I'm okay with that.
I'm okay too. Yeah.
I probably will not be here because all my girls are coming in, and so I will find out if there's time, but I would rather say it today and wish you all the best and wonderful
Yes.
time.
Happy holidays to all of you. Fröhliche Weihnachten, if I'm pronouncing that okay.
Thank you. Yeah. And if I can, I will show up, but probably not.
Okay. All right. Okay, I'll catch up with you guys later then. Thanks.
Okay, thanks,
Take
Sam.
care. Bye.
Bye.
So I have recently come across intuition as a subject that is being studied in a way that I wasn't aware of. And it's inspired me because we all have intuition. We all use it quite often or rarely, depending on who we are. But up to now, I haven't really acknowledged that it's something that could be seen as knowledge side by side with evidence-based knowledge. And this is how it's being presented, it seems to me. And yeah, it's quite inspiring, partly because I see it as more right brain, left side, more a female type of knowing, or that's the way that it has been seen, because it's sort of seen as something unreliable or not factual, which tends to get associated with women rather than men. But all of that can change if intuition can be seen side by side with factual knowledge. So I really wanted to introduce that into this arena and just hear thoughts about intuition, what you feel about intuition, how you relate to it, how it affects your life, or
Okay, Anna's gone off cam. I'm not sure if that's just a connectivity issue. But I'll flow from where she was leading us. I feel forward into my life, and I feel that I use my intuition very, very much to understand the direction I should be going into. And yeah,
sorry, I have to leave you. That was Daniel calling me, and I have invited him to come on the call. He's at home for Christmas, so he's going to join us. If
Great.
Somebody could just send him the number.
Great. Okay, I'll do that.
Brilliant.
Okay, done.
You were in the middle of saying something. I cut you off, Tammy. So do you want to
Oh,
finish?
just that I feel that I use my intuition as a navigational device to know where to go and how to go. And part of what's been really valuable for me in learning in this space is that we get to feel each other. And I feel that that's part of what we've been developing, is the capacity to feel into what we are together. Hey, there's Daniel.
Hi, Daniel.
We've got your mouth and your
Half
chest.
of your head. There you go. I think you're on mute.
Yes, I'm just going to listen in,
Okay.
so carry on.
Well, I volunteered to facilitate this session. And I introduced the theme of intuition. And Tammy was just talking about how she related to intuition.
And we usually do a bit of a round at the beginning, which we don't have to do, Anna. But it might be.
I was wondering about that. Yeah, one thing that I felt about our go-rounds is that we don't often talk about just how we're feeling in ourselves. We tend to talk about stuff that we've been doing, which generally is the sort of dominant value, as opposed to it's the sort of dominant knowledge type of. Glenn. Hi, Glenn. So Glenn, we're just beginning a go-round, and I've volunteered to facilitate this meeting, and the theme that I want to explore is intuition. It's something that's just come up for me. I'm probably going to be doing a course in studying intuition. It's called Intuition is a Leadership Quality. And so I've been exploring it a bit on the net and discovered that there's quite a bit written about intuition and quite a few coaches offering it as really important quality to encourage. So I was just saying, yeah, that I think that if we consult our intuition about just how we're feeling at the moment, that would be an interesting thing to add on to our go-round. And I was thinking of sort of 1 to 10 type of, am I a 7 or am I really feeling down in the dumps for some reason? And doesn't need an explanation, just a sort of, this is how I'm feeling today. So I guess I'll start. I've said a bit about, where my thoughts have been. And so just to say, yeah, I'm a bit up and a bit down. So I guess a 5. I'm sort of in between. And I'll pass it over to whoever wants to take it up.
I'm feeling great. Haven't been out of the house though, so I'm feeling a bit stuffy. But other than that, I'm feeling really good inside. Very happy. Excited. Yep, there you go.
How long have you been home, Daniel? Can I ask these questions? I mean, have you just got home, or have you been there for some time?
You can ask questions.
Well, I'm facilitating, so I can make the rules.
I'm here now.
Okay.
So I would say if I put a number on it, I'm probably about a 6. Things are going pretty well, but have continued to be really full on. It's really nice to see you, Daniel. Everyone else too, but haven't seen you in a while.
It's been a while.
And in terms of intuition, I just want to put a little seed in there. This whole project for me has been led by intuition. And so when Daniel and William were suggesting that we come together to create a proposal for the Global Challenges collaboration, I was definitely following my intuition and knowing that through collaboration, powerful things can happen. And so specifically in terms of intuition, knowing the work that Daniel is doing, knowing the work that that Art Brock is doing, really feeling this coming together, and all of us, but really feeling this coming together of both technological solutions and human solutions. My path has been to feel how those things knit together. And so, even though this process has been a bit hard to define in terms of what we're learning and how we're doing it, it is absolutely led by intuition. So I'm really grateful for you framing this session in that way, because I feel that we all know that we're here for a reason, for many reasons, and for a purpose. But we're in a process of discovery using our intuition and our capacities to communicate, to figure that out. So I'm just going to chuck that in there.
I can say a few words. Hello everyone. Sorry I'm a little bit late. I like the theme. It's very interesting. I don't know what to say about it. It's one of those things that feels as though this is very important, but it's not easy to know what to say about it. But what I know is that when I came in this group because Tammy invited me, and I knew about the Global Challenges collaboration, but it was quite close to the deadline, so I didn't get mixed up with the process of the draft. But I did, when I saw a few of the videos, I had an intuitive sense that this group was working in the same direction that I wanted to go, and there's some intuitions which I had from the beginning that I still have about how this process should go, and seems to be similar to some of the intuitions of others. I don't even know if it's intuitions or if it's ideas or opinions about how to do it. And it's taken many years. So I mean, it's like probably 5 years ago or something, I already then had ideas about these kind of conversations. So I've certainly felt a pull in this direction, but I don't know what is intuition and what is not. I just noticed that there's certain things that I have been very interested in, and I can see many of the rest of you also have this, that we're sort of pulled in certain directions. So, yeah. Apart from that, I just came home. I've been out a lot of Christmas groceries and things, so I'm a little bit tired. But I've actually been thinking a lot about this group today, so I feel quite good to be here and talk to you again. So say that's good for now.
I guess I'll jump in. I am feeling very still and at peace. It's been really profound today and quiet. Although I can't count on whether the dogs will act up behind me or not. So I don't vouch for the maintenance of quiet for long. And these are nourishing for me. So this is, I feel really good being here. And when these conversations happen. And intuition, for me, just to unpack it a little bit, for me, intuition is the thing beyond definition, knowing, and sort of cognitive horizon. If that makes any sense, it's not in thought space. And it's also not in feeling space for me. It's not, what's my feeling in the moment. I think I consider it really important. I do as much as possible to make sure I'm tuned in and honoring it. But my experience of it in that is completely intangible, invisible, unquantifiable. The only way I sort of can reference it is I'm and before there were lots of judgments in English and twists that I imposed on the whys and the wherefores for it. But I've always been very tuned into the idea of it guiding time and it guiding what I work on when. And I'll take very luxurious amounts of time just sort of digesting things, thinking about things, letting them cook. And it's not a conscious process. It's just sort of like taking in information or taking in a challenge or taking in a puzzle or taking in somebody's work or whatever. And I think there's an internal intuition mechanism or governor that lets me know when it's time to act or respond or do, if that makes any sense. Like, that's the active part that it plays in my life. I'm very aware of, I'm not ready to write that, or I'm not ready to make that phone call, or I'm not ready to progress something or to take a particular action. Like, and there is no earthly, tangible, rational, emotional, or other thing operating in that decision. It is a completely other thing, other sensing level. But in the last few years, I've really come to appreciate it and honor it. So I really sort of let that be okay, and don't stir in all sorts of judgments of, am I procrastinating? Am I doing this? Am I doing all of that other crap isn't operative anymore. So I don't have any downside or negatives around allowing the time for whatever it is to breathe. So that's probably as close as I could come to talking about it in the way it sort of shows up and manifests. But I value the hell out of it. I trust it. I have a lot of trust. And I'm complete.
Yeah, as of for me, I'm kind of in between the preparation phase and awaiting our girls to come. My brother already here. I told you about him, and it's a great, yeah. It's this awaiting time and still have to do some things. So I'm in my last errands, stuff to do, cleaning. So so there is being busy and being calm at the same time, and that's fine. That feels good. Yeah, and intuition. I'm really curious what you learned, Anna. What you were talking about. You didn't go into the depth, but a little bit. And I wonder if that. I'm not sure. So it's not that I can say this is intuition, but I wonder if that is parallel or that realm which we grasp in the green street light phase, where we have access to more than 40 million impulses that cannot be grasped intellectually or feeling wise or so. So I'm pretty much going with what you said, Doug. So what is that which is not thought through, felt deeply, but just this sense, where does that information come from? That's what I'm interested in. And I'm guessing it's really this being in the flow, being in the now, being in coherence with our two hemispheres and the whole system, in which I have access to all those impulses, information that is beyond the intellectual and feeling realm. So I would like to know more about what you just pointed to?
Well, I'm just on the very edge of it, because it's only, I've only just begun exploring, because I'm going to do this course at the end of January, which is 4 evenings online on Zoom. And I guess we're going to be given exercises and things to do to try to prepare the way so that intuition can arise. I mean, I think it's very clearly recognized that you can't just make it happen. But it does seem to be a sort of direct access to some knowledge which is outside the realm that we generally call knowledge. But it feels to me huge. Somebody was telling me yesterday how she was playing tennis with a friend, and this friend went to pick up a ball, and she knew that she shouldn't pick this ball up, but she didn't have any reason why, and she didn't actually say anything. And her friend was sort of hesitating, waiting for the other people to stop playing. Eventually she picked the ball up and she cricked her back. So it was as though she knew somehow, there was this knowledge that she knew that it was the wrong thing to do. So it feels to me there is this amazing well of knowledge, which is somehow universal, which we can, if we develop this particular facility, perhaps learn to tap into much more. And that feels very exciting to me as a possibility. So like you, Gertrude, I'm just curious to know more. And I'll just say that the reason that I decided to present this here was my intuition. My intuition said to me, you have to present today. You have to facilitate this. And I've got no idea how to do it, but this is what you have to do. So, here it is in practice.
May I go back one step and just say hello to Daniel, because we don't know each other yet. So just hi, and it's great to see you wherever you live, wherever you come from. And so
Thanks. Hi.
I just wanted to acknowledge that.
Daniel is my son. I am his mother. I think it's important just to make that.
I didn't know.
that was how I came into the group, actually, was through Daniel, because he began the group and then told me about it, and I asked if I could be a part of it.
Yeah, great.
There is another universe where I think intuition for me plays a really significant role, and that's in the coaching and workshop work that I do. I will it's completely on an intuition sense level, but I'll be sort of provoked to ask a question that will sort of invariably the answer opens up and provides a huge amount of clarity for the person I asked, for me, and for the room in the workshop context. But I'd love to share an anecdote. I was involved, my son was involved with Boy Scouts, and I was a assistant troop leader, scoutmaster, whatever. So I could share as much time with him in that as possible. And there was a kid in the troop, and he was, by and large, and for the most part, a terrific kid, caring, aware, enthusiastic, engaged. And every once in a while, he would just do the most bone-ass stupid things imaginable, just really insanely either risky or dangerous or just plain stupid. And after one of these episodes, he threw a lighter into the fire, which is like not a really good idea. And so I looked at him and I was like, and I basically shared what I just said about him to him. And I said, could you tell me who is doing that? And let's say hypothetically his name was John, and he goes, "Oh, that's Billy." And I said, "Oh." I said, "And Billy's the one with that who did this and did that and did." Yeah. I was like, "Okay." I said, "Would you do me a favor?" He goes, "Yeah." I said, "Could you fire Billy for the rest of camp, for the rest of this week, please? Like, tell him to get lost. We just don't want him around for this week." He was like, "Okay, no problem." And it was just really clear to me that there were two different people going on here. And when he came out with the name that fast, it sort of affirmed and brought into clarity, the reality of that for him. And I've actually come to believe after a lot of workshops that there's far more of that actually in the world than we recognize or acknowledge in terms of people having multiple versions of themselves or multiple personalities. I think it's a lot more common part of the curve, natural curve, than we recognize. But that was pure, it was just pure intuition sensing. And when we got home from the week, I shared it with his parents, and they were like, "Wow." I was like, "So, just so you know, when Billy pops up, make sure you call him by his name." And don't misattribute one to the other. And they were like, "Okay, thanks. I really appreciate that." So yeah, intuition in that space in terms of people to people is a big thing for me.
Did you get a follow-up? Did you hear from the parents?
Oh yeah. No, the parent, like the father, he was also involved with the troop for a while, and he said to me, "We had this thing where he started to head down a road with something, and I said, 'Yo, Billy,' and he stopped dead cold in his tracks. It was like," and he said, "Really useful that." And I said, yeah, it helps. It helps to know, you know. So yeah, it's we're a lot more colorful than we give ourselves credit for in terms of what the normal bell curve of human beings has in it.
But you just happened to ask the right question.
That was purely, and it was pure out of
Yeah.
the ether. Yeah.
But I have those, I think we all have those things, like somebody, especially in coaching sessions or where you really are present with the person or so, that all of a sudden something comes out of the mouth and they, where does that come from? I mean, as if I didn't say it, because it didn't make the way through my brain. It just came somewhere, and here I speak it, and it's completely true, and it's completely the right question or whatever that might be. And I cannot say I said that because it doesn't feel like that. It's just this, as if there was a channel through which this loudspeaker somehow.
I like the phrase "getting out of the way." You know, so I've heard that talked about a lot, and I'm not necessarily in conjunction with intuition, but definitely in terms of the description of kind of just saying things, and it's just free flowing.
And mostly this is more accurate and more on and more supportive for the process than anything I can think with my brain and then bring it out.
Yes.
Whatever you call that.
It's understanding that is so sort of shocking in a way, that because we trust our thinking so much and we think that that's the only way to find the answer to something.
I think Einstein said something like, we made the servant the master. So our mind should be the servant and not the master, and we made it the master.
I have a little remark. I don't know if it's any point in defining intuition, but I heard someone say once that it comes from experience, and in some sense, it feels like I'm receiving impressions from all over the place, and thoughts go around over time, and there's some thoughts that keep coming back, and they come back with they feel more convincing, like I can believe in them, and also sometimes if I can be more present in a situation, more whole, you could say, maybe more balanced, then at times there's an energy which flows through, and I sort of know what to say. But but that sort of happens. It's not so easy to understand, and maybe it's no point trying to, but it comes out. But one thing which came to me today, I was walking and I was thinking about these conversations, and then an idea came to me that it's very important in these talks to be able to just say whatever feels right to be said at any moment, and to sort of have this free flowing format. And we talked a little bit about that playfulness, and that is one intuition which has come back many times, that this sort of collective process that we're involved in, if it's going to work well, then it has to be a space where we can naturally manifest and sort of say whatever we feel like saying, really. And I also actually relate it even to our conversation about human-centered technology, because this vision that I have of human-centered technology is technology which is kind of in the background and takes care of formalities, which basically make the scene so that we can be natural and follow our intuition. And at certain moments, there's a feeling that now this is the way to go. And then to be able to just follow that, and we don't have to analyze it or try to understand why, but sometimes this comes, and then be able to go with that. And but that was an intuition in itself, that, but not just an intuition, it's also something I've thought about, that this sort of we have here of open conversations, if it's going to work really well, then we have to be able to be in a relatively intuitive state, natural state. And that intuition itself has come back several times strongly, like it says, this is really important. It's like a voice inside that keeps saying this. And it says to me, it's really important, Glenn, that you just say what you feel like saying. That's actually most important. That's also an intuition about a process where intuition should have space, I guess. Yeah.
And it feels very much that our process is based on intuition, in a sense, like what we've been learning in terms of who speaks next and how we build our understanding between each other is based on an intuitive sense of when to open the mouth next and what to say. And Daniel's piece around getting out of the way, that's a big chunk of it. And Gertrude, your piece around just allowing that channel to be open, and it's not going through the mastered mind, but rather allowing a higher intelligence to move through us. And one of the senses that I have, and Doug, I also really like your the difference between feeling and sensing. You didn't exactly say that, but it's not about my emotional body and what I feel, although my emotional body may give me some senses, but rather a higher mechanism in my consciousness around sensing into. And I feel that those are the capacities that we've been kind of working with in this human interoperability space, which is a part of how this began. Was, yes, we need to have technological interoperability, but we also need to know how to work together and how to really hear each other and pick up each other's pieces and carry them and understand them. And in my, one of the things that in terms of my capacities and my abilities that I'm learning about and motivated to trust more, is that I have an intuition around critical pathways to transition of systems. So I have a sense of the importance of, or the power of, convening specific conversations and creating the space and creating, the space to be able to allow a collective intelligence to be expressed in real time for a purpose. And so earlier this year, pre this coming together, I had an intuition that Daniel and Art should have a conversation because of what they're working on. And I am really motivated to shift gears into specifically, purposefully convening conversations between people who have projects that and missions that are aligned, including myself being that. And so I'm excited to take steps in that. And it is about following the intuition in terms of who to convene and under what frame. And so I'm really excited to play with you all in the space of co-convening specific purposeful conversations and taking this kind of work to the next level. And not that these check-in conversations aren't absolutely valuable. I also feel, read, sense that taking specific steps into purposeful, convened conversations is going to help us to build that plane more effectively, clearly, and demonstrate what it is to collaborate at a deeper level.
There are a couple of things. They started to stack up a little bit. Glenn, you triggered something for me, which is there's a trust and safety are sort of the key to this, right? And within trust and once everybody gets to a level of trust and safety, part of the yin and yang of this, the intuition part is sort of Gertrude, to your point, it's sort of like wherever it came from, it flows through you, flows through me. But there's also a dimension of that whole trust and safety thing, which has to do with learning how to, I often use the expression that I live open source. So I have no hidden anything, and there's nothing about me on any level, if anybody has any curiosity or question, that I have any issue or challenge answering on a personal level, on a circumstance level, on whatever level. And the cultural imprint, the coding, our coding, I realized as Glenn, you were talking, that our coding is to non-disclosure. Our coding is to non-transparency. Our coding is to hypersensitivity to, quote, privacy, which is really, it's not just about fear, sort of instantiated fear and lack of trust, but it is also a kind of programmatic withholding that, you know, as long as there's no intimacy, you know, in the meaning of into me see intimacy, as long as there's no intimacy, we're all divided, we're all individual and atomized, and we're all conquered. Like, we can be manipulated and controlled and exploited and used. The minute we actually start trusting, sharing, and opening up, and the minute we actually get to knowing each other, and that knowing, I think, Anna's on that same level. It's on that intimate, it's on an intuition level. It's not just knowing what you do. It's not just knowing your story. It's not just knowing whatever all that other stuff is, but it's actually sensing and knowing who you are as a human being on a much bigger, you know, the person who's missing here is Heiner, because he would be bringing in his guy. I'm blanking on his name, but who he always invokes as his talisman. But knowing each other on that level and achieving openness and transparency, I think, is also central, critical to that, to the intuition function, sort of the synchronicity of that. Because the more I know each of you and all of you, the more whatever that mechanism is going to find things to connect dots on, or to share, or to provide insight into, or to inform. It's almost like increasing the possibility field. Because there is a piece of knowing in it. It's not about knowing. Intuition isn't a knowing thing, but it works off of or leverages what's known. And I have no idea whether I'm making any sense. I'm doing the best I can. And so, and for me, Tammy, in terms of that idea of surfacing resonances, surfacing alignments that are more purpose-driven or more sort of generativity and enaction driven. For me, that's an emergent thing out of, right? So, you know, I had thrown out, this is a really tangible thing, especially since I can invoke him since he's not here. Sam shared and sort of said 2 or 3 sessions back, I'll take on, in terms of, you know, this idea of a platform that would capture stuff and data and information, all that. And I said to him very explicitly, I said, got a lot of mind share on that, would love to help, contribute, work with you on that. And we're scheduled to talk Saturday. Like, it finally, it took, I don't know, 3 weeks or 4, whatever it was, between his lifing and my lifing, but it's gonna happen, right? And Harry popped up with, want to talk to you because I'm with some people that are working on a platform, and that's going to happen. And all of these loops are going to be able to be converged in a very purpose-driven, tangible, practical, project-y way as an emergence of these conversations. Like, those reference points came out of different conversations at different times with different groups of people around the common mean, right? So for me, your piece in terms of your intuitive gift and power is in conducting conversations that enable those emergences to be understandable and accessible to far more people as a interpreter and translator. So those are that was a list, and I'm complete. I'll stop.
By the way, is Sam here today, or
He had to go to take a friend to the doctor, so he opened it and had to sort of bail. But he's clearly here, intimidatingly so, in spirit with this image that is peering out and keeps drawing my attention.
Because I've been thinking a lot about some of the things he said last time, and I felt that Sam, he expressed a wish for a certain structure of capturing the data, and something more specific, action driven too. And that's also an intuition for me. I agreed on with its emergence. And today I was thinking about that, and it dawned on me that in this process we're in now, we actually have to redefine the human relationship to structure on a very deep level. It's on to information, to ways of doing things, to the models of the world, and this is one of those themes that keep coming back. And it's you need a certain structure. There's a wish for structure, and there's a wish for openness. And my intuition strongly says both need to be here, and they need to be harmonized. And then, as I was going through that today, it occurred to me that there are some kinds of structures which has gaps built into them. And this idea came structures and anti-structures. But I don't know if you call it anti-structure, but let's say you have these conversations Thursdays and Sundays. So far, they've been very open conversations, and I think probably they should continue to be. But the structure is that we meet here at a certain time, and then all kinds of things can happen. So it's sort of like a structure which has a gap, and if we show up, then we show up, that's the structure, and then the gap can be filled with whatever. And that's an important part of this process. And I believe that has to continue to have these open conversations where anything is on the table. And in addition to that, out of those comes specifics. So then some themes may want to go into specific topics and more laser focused into that. And I feel that's sort of the natural continuation to continue with this open format, but then to also have some more specific conversations. I feel I want to go into specifics, and I also have a lot of specific ideas about the specifics. And if we can find that kind of balance, it's really it's really starting to happen then. So I don't know how specific we should get today, but I mean, I have a lot of suggestions for themes we may want to explore specifically. And one of them is this relation between human beings and machines and information, which really is the framework for all this. And my intuition strongly says that we need to reconsider this from first principles, almost as if we came to the planet, suddenly we have surfaces with patterns of lights, and we can send signals, and we don't know what these surfaces are, and we can do anything with them. Almost like we're an alien. We came here, oh, now you can speak to people all over the world, and you can send signals with the speed of light and mass transmit them. What could we do with this? And sort of put behind all our preconceptions of what we should do. And then, yeah.
It's really interesting you're talking like that, because right now I'm trying to explain what I want. I'm getting some developers to build some software for me. Well, for us, we're a team, and we start talking about something, and then there's a slippery slope of going into generalities, and someone mentions some kind of algorithm that I've never heard of, and it just, my brain clouds over, and I realize what I need to do is really specify what it looks like on a screen because of that, and I think there's a kind of a methodology that seems to be used in the circles that I keep of oscillating between generalities and then going into specifics and kind of actually how does someone actually use it, whatever it is. And I find that quite useful to make that oscillation not too long in its period of time. That's otherwise I can end up coming out of a meeting not knowing what was discussed at all. So I was thinking of actually asking you just I'm curious what you're talking about. Like, how does this potentially manifest for you? Because I like seeing things come together, and I wondered if it manifests for you in a particular way.
Are you asking me or people here?
Yeah, Glenn.
So what do you mean? How it manifests?
Well, like, if you could actually touch something, how would it? How would it? What would it be like for you?
Okay, I'll say a few things about that. Like, for me, the purpose here is it's global. So it's to find a way for people all over the world to be able to work together as well as possible. And we're all together one way or another. So how it would manifest? Happy people. And people doing what they love doing, which they have talents for doing, and expressing that openly, and then being rewarded by the community. So a kind of harmonious interaction between each person depending on what they bring, and then a community which can capture that value and give something back. So a relatively harmonious reciprocal relationship. Also, more specifically, finding the right people at the right times to work together with, to create teams, to be able to fulfill specific tasks. And then, on a somewhat larger scale, a system to make sure that some people can specialize on some tasks, others can specialize on other tasks, and then so that there's also an efficiency and not double work, for example. But also a process in itself which creates learning during the process. And maybe in unexpected ways. So it's like, it's one process, and maybe I'm doing many different things, or maybe there's many different values coming out of this one process. That's what these video conversations are, as far as I can tell, because we learn something about ourselves, we see ourselves from the outside, and we learn to be together, and we develop ideas which feed on themselves, and we develop media expressions which can be useful in many ways. So it's a multi-purpose process. So I could see a sort of natural process where each person can do their thing and make their thing their own, and then you have a larger space which can get value from each individual contribution. And if it's for the good of the whole, so I think of the whole world, humanity, like something that's sustainable. So it's like what we do with 5 people, 1,000 people could potentially be scaled to the whole world, but you have to start somewhere. But if it truly is scalable, then the ideas there will be no reason not to share them openly, because a sort of system where there's a natural selection mechanism, you can say, so that the ideas which benefit the whole are the ideas which benefit the individual to focus on. So it's a give and take between person and collective. That's something like that. I mean, it's a big idea, but I don't see any reason why it shouldn't be possible to do it that way.
So I can share because this is like a very tangible thing in my universe. When you sort of invert the current technology-oriented order and make it human being centered, and you make it commons centered, and you have it be mediated with shared values as sort of the foundational principles. My partner and I call it a collective metacognition machine works, but it's actually a platform. And the platform is designed in service to human beings being generative individually and collaboratively, and contributing through that generativity. And the tools, the machinery, isn't the point. The data isn't the point. Although data is a byproduct of human generativity. But data in and of itself, disassociate from human generative activity, is valueless. It means absolutely nothing. It's only valuable and meaningful if it's accessible in real time in the context and process of generating and collaborating. The way the industrial frame is set up and the way the technology emergence has occurred, it's been human beings working in service to the machines. We're operators. And it's a complete straw man thing to prioritize the machinery, the tool, the program, the data. These are not the point, and they have no intrinsic value or meaning. They're as sort of illusorily significant as fiat currency is. Fiat currency doesn't have anything to do with value either. So if you focus on the human experience in the generative process, then that sort of informs and provides a vision for what the platform has to do. Like, how does it have to work? How does it serve people? And the key and biggest and singularly greatest change is that there are no generalizations, meaning the platform serves each individual on a custom basis in the way easiest for them to be maximally generative in contributing their time and attention and whatever expertise, skill set, passion, and interest they have. So all of us could be collaborating on a project, but what the screen I look at and the tools that I use and my experience in my collaborative process with you is mine, and yours is yours, and somebody else's is somebody else's. And the technology and automation has to serve that, not everybody conform and use the same tool. And everybody has to look at the same screen. And the user interface is one user interface. Just the concept of that makes absolutely no sense relative to human experience and capability. Because there may be somebody whose sole means of collaborating and contributing is a telephone, not even a smartphone, a regular phone. The platform has to enable them to participate. Everybody has to be able to contribute if they're moved to, if they have an interest to, if they experience the pull to. It's all or none. So completely different rules, completely different spec, completely different approach to development. And then Tammy came along and threw this huge curve into our soup with finally decoding Holo for me and Holochain for me, which is the idea of truly distributed processing and connectivity. And so we added a distributed architecture to the platform design we've been working on, and that really blows the thing to hell because there's no AWS in the back end, there's no database, centralized this, centralized that, and there shouldn't be, because if you have anything centralized, that's power, control, authority, and back to the industrial frame. So anyway, I didn't mean to turn this into a technical or a soapbox. I'll stop. But we have a multi-page document, which is our sort of V1 of.
Let me see it.
Of the layers of this. Yes, you can. And
where?
I'll give you a link.
Okay, great.
It's actually a couple of hours away from runtime for other people because I have to make sure it doesn't go kablooey formatting wise. But I will figure out where to share a link for those that want to look at it. And this is an open collaborative thing, but I think it'll put a lot of meat and potatoes on the bones. And I'm out.
Awesome.
Me too.
Doug, was that the values manifesto you're talking about?
No, we've particularized all the pieces of this. The Values Manifesto is the piece about values. We have something called the Human Generativity Principle, which is about that time and attention meme. This is, we call it the Collective Metacognition Machine Works, the CMM. And a sub-piece of it is the generativity space, which is the holding of this kind of space for the collaboration to happen within. So this is about what's the platform all of us need and want to serve us in doing what we're doing. Because it doesn't exist, it hasn't been built. That's what we're setting out to build. All the technology exists to do it, to achieve the right result, but it hasn't been pressed into service to people, to human beings. Yay. It's been pressed into service for data and information and production and analysis, all this industrial crap.
Okay, I'd like to come back to what Glenn was saying, because it's difficult for me to relate to all the technical stuff. And obviously there is a real need for it, but it does feel that these conversations, like Glenn was saying, you know, there is a need for these conversations, and there is also a need for the specifics. And somehow they don't necessarily go together. So what impressed me about what Glenn was saying was he was making a link really with this idea of intuition and our ability to be essentially ourselves. So it was some sort of purity, that was the way that it struck me, which is, you know, which is not an idea. It's not a category. It's not a concept. It is a reality, an experiential reality of being in the moment. It doesn't exist in the past and the future because those are always concepts. So that's what I feel we're doing here. And, you know, I felt that was a really good link that Glenn made, that this is the, oh, I didn't realize that Doug disappeared, did he? Oh, I guess.
He didn't disappear. We all disappeared for him.
Okay.
Just saying.
Well, we disappeared without me saying goodbye. Yeah, I just love that idea that really we are here to become more purely free to be ourselves, to allow ourselves just to say whatever comes into our heads. I don't mean that in a it's very difficult to define why. I don't mean that in a totally gobbledygook way, but there is a way when we are really connected to ourselves that what we say comes from a vital place. Mm-hmm. And when we're not connected, so that is really the core, that is really the essential bit of finding that connection. And intuition seems to be a way to connect in that way. Or maybe intuition is the expression of that connection. In fact, we don't really know how to do that. I mean, like Daniel was saying, get out of the way. It's not easy. I mean, we try and practice it our whole lives, but it's really tough. You try and learn things, but actually, in a sense, learning has nothing to do with it. it's somehow finding that connection, finding that pearl in the middle of all the rubbish that's around.
I think there's a this distinction between reflex, like a a famous person twittering out, just what comes through the mind, and just reflex, like reflective, and then there's this in between where we think about it and think it through and and work hard on it, and then this intuitive space. And sometimes it looks like the reflective space. So some people say I go with the gut feeling, but it's actually reflex. I can't help it saying this. And being connected with myself and the others, that makes, and let go of making something happen, and putting myself out of the way, and then what then comes. this is a difference. Then there's no way I can stop myself from doing it, because it's just my whatever, my beast.
I've had some great realizations recently about you know, Doug was saying different parts, that kid, and just having different personalities, and just that split personality stuff. And I think really seen different parts of me very, very clearly, and that's been really interesting. And then extrapolating that he was saying we're all got like that, but I definitely know now that we are all totally, what's the word, schizophrenic, and that for me has really let me relax a bit. Interestingly enough, it's like that we're all totally crazy and we're all schizophrenic, and this whole notion that we should should be behaving in a certain way, or you know, and there's a lot of this like how dare you and blaming and all this kind of stuff, and it really, well, at the moment anyway, I won't know what the future will hold, but for the moment I've become far less, blamey, but also I don't think I particularly was massively, but I'm even less now, and that's been really useful in just relaxing. And also if I mess up, then that's also less of a self-blame thing going on. So I think that's been quite a useful bit of information that's sort of come my way. And it feels very healing as well to have that hanging around. Yeah, definitely healing. Have that there.
It's sort of being able to accept yourself the way you are, sort of thing.
Yeah.
Healing.
And the way other people are.
Yeah.
No, not necessarily agree with them, but just understand that they are where they are. And you know, it's like when I start to piss people off, whenever they start saying, "Oh, well, she shouldn't have done that, he shouldn't have done that," and I said, "Well, listen, you know, they are who they are, you know." And to bring it back to intuitiveness, what is it?
Intuition.
Intuition. But yeah, I think a lot of what clouds our way is just all those how dare yous. It's expectations, isn't it? There's this kind of overlay of expectations going on, and not really. Another word I'm really getting into is curiosity. Just being curious about what is, and actually having that in mind has really helped. Just, you know, at all levels, relationships, technology, experience, big, small, whatever. It's just you know, being curious at what is happening, and that also is very relaxing as well, because there's a lot less expectation about what should happen. It's quite amazing, actually, just a really subtle shift, and you can start applying it. Yeah, and I'm very desiresome. I have had lots of desires, but it doesn't matter if those desires don't come around, and that's so. Again, it's very relaxing to be to have that curiosity as a kind of a stronger motivator, you know. Yeah.
I think that's very interesting what you just said, Daniel, because this is like replacing the blame with curiosity. And as Doug said, who did that? I mean, like asking myself or others, what was that? Not why did you do that, but who did that? What was it about? Why was it? So really getting to know the deep down, what made me think that way? What made me act that way? What made somebody else act that way? And going with that curiosity helps others as well to uncover things that just were reflective, that where somebody did something and I didn't really know.
Yeah.
And for me, I think there's so many things happening in the US right now, but I think it's also a very interesting. I'm very curious what happens there, and how can people act that way, or this really to be interested in that humanness, what's underneath that. Not that I like it, but yeah, to replace blame by real interest.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. I'm going to riff on that. Yeah, I wanted to, I've got many things stacked up since Doug was speaking, but I really love what you've just said just now, Gertrude, around interest and curiosity. And there's some of those words that are used in you know, banking, for example, but have deep relevance in the attention economy, what you're interested in. And I want to tag on to some of what Doug was talking about in terms of what I need. You know, as a human being, I feel like I'm kind of schizophrenic is a great word for it, Daniel. Thank you. In a sense, I feel like I live in a world that doesn't exist It exists in pockets of people in resonant fields, but isn't fully manifest. And my intuition is drawing me towards, getting a hollow port, and talking to Daniel about how these media pieces we're creating can be stored on the hollow port and made available using ways to tag and sort that media to be able to connect our work in a different way. So there's, for me, part of the heart of it is that these representations of ourselves, our voice, our image, our data, if you will, should be owned by us. And I want to make that real in the world. And not only real in the world in terms of having it stored on a server that's part of a network that's the next internet, but also that it's part of a developing and co-designed system of the distribution of digital assets, right? That are representations of ourselves, our identity, and that are holding value beyond the moment. That they're of great value in the moment, but then we can leverage that value beyond, both by teaching, by demonstrating new ways of knowing and being and collaborating, and inviting people to participate. That generativity piece of how we share our work in the world. And it's that system that is not yet fully manifest that I'm intuiting and have devoted the last couple of decades towards, of my life stream, towards seeing what's out there, feeling inside of myself what would be needed, what are the socio-cultural barriers that are between us being able to actually literally be able to own our own data and have systems that come from that place. And when I say data, I don't mean just dead bits and bytes. I mean the representations of ourselves, our work, our intellect, our the love that we create in the world, our greater work with a capital W. And so part of me participating in this space is to be able to do that with others, knowing that it's a massive project. And it's not about me creating it, but rather intuiting a pathway through to connect specific pieces that make sense according to where I'm at in my life stream and who is in the room together and what makes sense to do. So it never sounds as clear coming out of my mouth as it does in my mind, and that's ultimately frustrating. But there is a system, there is a greater system that many, 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 many people are working towards all over the world. And I want to be a part of that. And earlier today, we talked about this protectionism in terms of we're protecting our ideas. And I think this is a consequence of hundreds of years of copyright developing. But we need to share. We need to be able to break those barriers and silos down and truly live that open source way. So these are the things that I'm deeply curious about, that get me up in the morning, that drive me forward to invest in these commons spaces between us. I was supposed to go about 45 minutes ago because I got stuff I got to do. So I'm going to stay for a few more minutes, but that'll be my kind of wrap up checkout as well.
I think I need to go, but I'm really, it's really lovely to touch base with y'all and be doing it more. I'm not out of a hole yet, but I'm getting there. So it's a lovely hole, but it's still a hole, and it's I will be venturing out and telling people where we're at when I know. So Yeah.
Where do you live, Daniel?
I'm a nomad, so I don't live anywhere in particular. I'm just answering you literally.
Just before,
Sorry?
I just want to say
I'll
before
see you a lot.
you're going now, Daniel.
I'm going now. I'll let you carry on.
I
I'll
just
see
want
you
to
soon.
say thank
Have
you very much.
wonderful holidays.
Cheers, and you guys. See you now. Bye-bye.
Bye.
I think I may take this opportunity to jump off too, because I otherwise I'm just gonna just stay and love it, but maybe push some of my other deadlines. So thank you guys so much. Thank you, Anna, for stewarding us today.
Thank you for being here. Yeah.
Bye.
Bye. Big hug.
Merry Christmas.
Yes. You too.
Does it feel like we're going to wrap up now?
I have a few things I was thinking about before we leave, or do you have to go away? Or when I heard all of you talk, I heard many examples of things which seem to me to be typical examples of some insights that I feel strongly intuitively, and I've also heard different people express in these conversations. For example, Daniel mentioned this being curious about what is, and you talked, Anna, about presence, and Gertrude, you mentioned the traffic lights. Some state you're in a traffic light where a lot of information comes in, and it occurred to me, I was thinking about today, like one meme or one idea which is very popular in our society is the idea of science and reason and knowledge. It has a very high status and importance, and it came to me today actually that there are some values beneath science which are very deep collective values, and one of them is this interest in understanding reality directly, understanding what is. And it can be questioned whether there's really a system in place to do it. You could question, does science really exist today in society in a manifest form, or is it systems which don't really give that idea its full expression? But the deeper idea of wanting to understand reality clearly, this is an idea in the collective psyche that it just came to me today, and it's one of those values which are common to all people, and I feel this is one very important part of this process, to try to somehow use this process to understand reality better, to see what is inside, what is outside, and that ultimately it is a question of the development of the human being. This is also what I heard Doug talk about, the human being centered system. And there's another little aspect which was mentioned, and that was that we're used to being protective of information. And you know, in a money economy, if you have many companies who want to make money, that is already systemically such that more money to some will be less to others. So there's a systemic imbalance. If the primary goal of all people in a certain system is to make as much money as possible, then that primary goal will prevent openness, because it's not going to, well, to say it sort of cynically, if your purpose is to get more of a limited resource, then you need secrecy. You need to have secret information that others don't have and sort of use it. But that dynamic shouldn't have to, there shouldn't have to be that dynamic if it is quality of life, which is the primary focal point. So let's say instead of getting as much resources as possible, it is to get the right amount of resources for my specific needs. So that if we could imagine a larger collaboration around actually corresponding interests, for example, using resources better, including time, including conversations, then that will systemically, there will be systemic reasons to be open and honest, and not really any reasons to keep anything secret. If the goal is truly aligned, yeah.
Well, just to come back on what you're talking about just now, I think you're talking about enough. If you have a value of enough rather than more. And yeah, I think I agree with you, but I would like to just go back to when you were talking about science, because when I was at college, there was a guy called Professor Popper there, and Popper talked about science as a specific attitude towards reality. He said that you can't know reality directly, that all the rules, the scientific rules or laws that are made up are actually just conventions that people agree. There is no real truth in them. They last until somebody finds a better way to describe what is happening, and then that one is jettisoned. And the whole aim of science is to design a hypothesis which can be tested, which can be falsified, not proved right, but proved wrong. So every time you manage to prove one wrong, you are progressing. Generally, it's the other way around, that science tries to prove things are right, and then they tend to ignore the things that disprove because they're not specifically looking for them. So he said that the most fruitful hypothesis was one where you were looking for stuff to disprove it. So that's just general stuff about science, which I found very helpful at the time. For example, the law that the sun is going to rise tomorrow, he would say there's no way to prove that. I mean, it has so far, but it may not. You know, something may come along and suddenly it doesn't apply anymore. So I found it useful because it doesn't actually take you closer to reality. So what you're talking about is more to do with an experience of being real, I think, of reality, of what does it mean to be alive or to be a human being. And those are different questions from science.
Yeah,
So that was
yeah, certainly. Science, that's my knowledge. What do you want to say, Gertrude?
I'm thinking of what's happening in, for example, the Environmental Protection Bureau in the US, where science is oblivion. it as yeah, and I think there is critique of science beyond this, I say, orange phase in the Ken Wilber terms, where you say, okay, we have like climate change or things like that. So having critique about science in a way that we say, okay, we have to be, what do you say, humble, cautious and humble about saying it is this way or that's the reality, but trying to understand reality more, or trying to get closer to the causes of climate change, for example, and then have the critique and say, okay, we can be better, or we should be humble about this. But to take that critique and say, okay, just forget about science, it's only how I see the world, and that's what matters, only my opinion matters. And I think that so I feel in between, kind of torn apart, to have that critique, and on the other side just throwing this out because of my own way and my money trails or whatever caused me to think that way. This hurts, because I think we should go beyond and not back and not before. when just the preachers or the powerful men could say this is reality. So I think that's a very interesting way of looking at science, if people dismiss science for power reasons.
Yeah, one of the points which I was considering today was also that real, true science is not really in our society today, as far as I can tell. What would be true science for me would be if the raw data of all experiments were available for everyone to check. And you can still have experts. It's not that, but I mean, this is a little bit beside my point, but I feel that there's a deeper value in wanting to come in contact with reality, and science, or the collective layer of proving things and checking them, for many people is one part of it. There's also the personal part. Like, okay, let's take reality. I'll just try to formulate this in a way that makes sense to me. Like, the reality that I experience now is real. It's 100% real. The reality that I currently experience, the impressions I experience, the thoughts, the subjective, all of this, it is real. There's no question about the fact that this is real. But then there's all the rest, which is also real. But is it possible to say, I have this perception of reality, I have these experiences, this is real, but without sort of pretending that it represents something beyond itself. So then maybe we come to humility, which is an important value, important scientific value, important value in spiritual traditions, and common sense value, I would say. Like just common sense. There's more happening than we know. Like there's conversations in the house and the street. And just because I don't see those conversations, they're still taking place. And the actions I do have consequences beyond what anyone can measure. So there will always be like if there's something called a collective knowledge that we can more or less agree on, that's one layer, but then it's a whole world beyond that. And I don't see anyone really disagreeing with this. It's quite
I
common
would
sense.
disagree with that. Because
What?
it doesn't, first of all, what you're saying about this is real, to me, it is my experience, but I'm not sure that it's real. I really don't know what is real. And I feel I could discover something which would tell me that all this that I saw actually wasn't real. It's quite possible. I just haven't got to that point yet. I'm assuming that all this is real because that's the way I need to act. But it's an assumption.
Yeah, but I would just wonder what you mean by that. Isn't it real per definition? My experience now, and then later maybe I learn something else and I figure out, oh, it's different, and I see it in a different context, and then that's also real. But isn't there a sort of inherent realness to our own experience?
If you want to define it that way, if you want to define that what you experience is real, then that's your definition. Yeah. But it wouldn't be my definition.
Well, I'm just saying that the experience is what it is. So it's something.
It's an experience.
Yeah.
It's not reality. It's an experience.
So there is, we could say there is no real, or there is no world out there, but only how the world occurs to me.
Could say that, yeah.
But I don't believe that. I think there is the world which I experience. This is 100% real. 100% real. Yes, and that means it is real.
Per definition.
Yeah, it's a reality. It's a reality. I see it, I feel it, it's here. It's here. But then there's much, much more, infinitely much more. So that's also real.
But the way you see it, what you think or what you feel as real is not my perception of the same occurring world.
That's your perception is also real. So from the perspective, the way I use reality here is there's this reality, there's that reality, there's all of realities, and there's the total reality of all of it, which none of us know. But there's still an inherent reality to each person's own experience at that moment. And there's no conflict between that and the fact that another person has their experience. And
I would say there often is. I mean, not in your definition, but in the righteousness of people.
The thing which is often said about the real is the real never changes because it is real. So that's a sort of more spiritual definition of reality. That there is a reality, which is probably with a capital R, which never changes, which people can experience, but they all actually experience the same thing. but that isn't our everyday experience.
Or yeah, or we see different parts of it. But yeah, I don't really know where this is kind of very deep, but it's, I feel it's important because
Sure. For you to find out what reality means to you.
Yeah, and like there is reality. That's one thing. Like that's something we all, there's something going on, and actually, I think that's more important than we usually realize. It's actually a lot that we all can see, and there's some commonalities, which similar impressions. But there's all, not to make this too complicated, but you talk about science and scientific laws, etc., and they are derived from regularities which we experience in nature. And some of them obviously very stable. But there's also the view that some laws may just be habits that we've sort of done it this way until now, but then if we become conscious or learn more, we can create new laws, and that this is maybe a part of the creative process, and that science as we know it doesn't have a language for this. But
it may
maybe
also be, Glenn, that we just tend to look for regularities. That's our tendency as human beings, because we experience regularities like night and day, and we tend to look for regularities because we feel more secure with regularities. So we've created somehow a world which appears to be fairly stable. I don't know. I mean, it's such a huge topic.
yeah.
I would like to share a story which made it pretty clear for me what in which realm we are looking. And still, I think science is very important to bring us forward, but not to stay in the way it was or till now. So to advance that as well, or develop that as well. My brother is a scientist with many patents, and he's really fed up with the system as it is right now. So having said that, I still think it's important to say it's real that the ocean is right, the islands are disappearing. I mean, it's obvious, but then people say, no, nobody, 95% say it's human-made, and there are some people that don't like it, and so they say you must not use the word science-based. So having said that, because I think this, to go back before into the Middle Ages of that, that's not the right decision. But my daughter, when she was 3 about, one day she was standing in the kitchen, and she's like, you could see her her head moving inside, her mind working hard. And then she said, Mommy, this is right. Yes, men always cook meat, and women always cook rice. And it was like, and I said, yes, for her, I don't like too much meat, and I don't like to cook big meals with whatever that's called. Yeah. And my husband, he didn't love the everyday cooking, but he loved to do this big stuff. And then from her point of view, it was real. It was really like almost 100% true. And I think sometimes reality or rules or something like that came out of this. Like, I mean, the kids have to explain the world for themselves. But she was like, there, she finally got a guideline or something that's, you know, making sense out of the world. And I have to think pretty often. I have to think about this, because the obvious isn't not the truth per se, but for the ones that try to find their ways and try to understand the world, the little ones or scientists some 100 years ago or so, they try to make sense out of what they see. And so scientists are not different than 3-year-olds that try to make sense out of what they see.
Yeah.
This was really demonstrating. So I really had to try not to laugh, because she was so serious about it.
I think the thing about climate change, it's very clear that even if there is a mistake in the measurement, and even if it turns out that it's not human beings that are doing it, and there's something else, sunspots or whatever, nevertheless, we should be going down that path which is the most healthy, which is stopping the emissions. To me, that's really clear. It's not a question of the science proving anything. It's just us being intelligent in how we respond.
Yeah. But some people decide not to follow that.
But that there's the talk and the justifications of actions, but it reminds me of something Peter Anderson said, because he was on some of these talks, and he's been doing research about what the people in different communities want to do. And it turns out that if you just ask them what sort of projects they want to do, then they naturally tend to want to go towards projects which are also environmentally sound. And so, I mean, maybe we don't, I mean, we're never going to get any final answer, because reality itself in its fullness is obviously way beyond anything we can measure, but we can use this knowledge to maneuver intelligently through the world.
Yeah.
And I guess that's maybe what, I mean, science, as far as I can tell, is what, if you imagine these sort of video conversations taken to their full potential, that would be a new science, as far as I can tell. A real science, which you would have empirical verifications of real world facts, and you can use video and you can find the relevant data, and that's a part of what this promise brings, of many people working together, because that's the common idea of science, is that you have different people all over the world who specialize on different things, and they share their knowledge, and then the community can draw on the total amount of work and experiences and knowledge. So maybe in one way what we're doing here is a continuation of science and many things. Yeah.
I hate to interrupt you, but I need to go now. And
Okay.
I hate
My
to interrupt
feeling
that
too.
conversation. But
Yeah.
it's not the last time that we talk.
No.
No, possibly we will meet on, oh, you won't be there, Gertrude, on Sunday evening, but
I will
so-
see. I just don't want to promise anything
No.
because, I mean, all my girls come in, my sister-in-law, and, you know, then we have the house full, and yeah,
sounds
and
lovely. Yeah, a real
yeah, and
holiday.
in Germany we celebrate Christmas Eve more than the.
That's right. Yeah.
So we have this evening, which is more important than in the morning. We sleep in the morning. So,
and Glenn, what
so
happens
that's
in
not the
yours?
right.
Is it Christmas Eve
Pardon?
in Norway? I'm just wondering what
Yeah.
Glenn, is it Norway you are? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Is
that's on Sunday, isn't it?
Yeah.
On Sunday, yeah.
Yeah, Christmas Eve is on Sunday this time.
It's Christmas Eve here too, yeah. I'll just be relaxing at home here with my girlfriend and the cat. So,
Lovely.
I mean, if there is a talk on Sunday, maybe I'll just come and say hello. I don't know how many people will come then, but
Well, we'll see. Yeah.
But are you planning to come?
Yeah, for us it's the gift sharing and
of course,
things like that.
Yeah, a lot of things happening.
Yeah, I will probably be there, but we may find that it won't happen. We'll see.
Well, okay. Yeah.
Thank you very much for today. And have lovely holidays, whatever you do. Just relax and enjoy. And see you.
Same for you. And thank you, Anna. You had a great intuition to talk about intuition.
That's right.
It was really great. I thought it was a wonderful subject. Yeah. Nobody really knows what it is, but we can all talk about it.
You opened up a whole new field of inquiry today. So.
Yes. Yeah. That was lovely. Thank you all.
Thank you
all.
And
have a wonderful time with all your loved ones. Wherever you have them and meet them and have a wonderful time. Yep.
Yeah.
So
okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
And Thursday you will meet again, or?
I think so. Yes, I think it will
be. Because then we will visit our daughter in Austria with the baby. So another big family thing.
Okay.
So I'm not sure that I will be. Maybe from Austria, but you know, when everybody is together and having dinner, or I don't know.
There's New Year's Eve also coming up, which is
New Year's Eve,
possibly on the Sunday. So we may miss a week or so of this. We'll see.
Yeah.
We'll connect via email.
I will be connected to my family if I'm not here.
Yeah.
So. Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Latest next year.
Yes. We will see you. In the new
oh, by the way, I just forgot. On New Year's Eve at 12 o'clock Greenwich time, so midday, there is a meditation, the healing the World Healing Meditation. So everybody can just join in wherever they are with as many people as they want to, or alone, just between 12 and 1 o'clock Greenwich time.
Okay.
And so the whole world that comes from the Reiki people, I think. But there you can dance, drum, whatever you want to, just be in this, be connected, and it's about the healing of the world. So we meet, maybe we meet then.
Okay.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye.